Come on in, welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we're talking about 5 Survivor votes that made no sense for the viewers at home. I think Survivor does a pretty great job at explaining how and why the 16 odd losers on any given season went home. Sometimes it's not a logical reason, sometimes it's not explained well, and sometimes it's not even actually what really happened. But it is at least explained. Wrong side of the numbers, they have an idol, their name starts with an early letter in the alphabet. That's most of the time, but there are 5 boots in Survivor history that stand out to me as being almost completely unexplained by the show itself. Why was this person targeted? Why were they the vote? What were the events that led to their elimination? Obviously, these people went home for some reason, but good luck finding out from the show. Now, hopefully this doesn't come off as too much of a whine fest. Survivor really is the best in the business when it comes to reality storytelling. Hand the footage for Edge of Extinction to anyone else and see what mess you get. Still, there are a rare few times when the how and why of the boot was left on the cutting room floor. All that said, let's dig into 5 Survivor boots that weren't explained on the show hardly at all. At number 5 is Jenny's elimination in Survivor Cook Islands. Taken out by an unexpected bottle twist and then given hardly any justification for why she's taken out, Jenny remains one of the most screwed people in Survivor history. She had so many more wildly offensive votes to cast. At Final 11 of Survivor Cook Islands, everyone's favorite tribe, Rero, loses immunity, and Jeff pulls some bullshit in a bottle out of his pocket. A note in a bottle to be read after tribal council. Although the bottle just sits at camp menacingly, the Rero tribe figures that the note probably just tells them to pack up their stuff and go merge with Itu. That's a reasonable assumption. The discussion at camp largely revolves around whether to eliminate original post-swap Rero member Rebecca or newbie Jonathan, who mutinied to this tribe a vote prior. This is the last vote before the merge, they think. So Rero believes it is of paramount importance that they get this vote right. The entire episode is narrated by Jenny, who lays out the pluses and minuses of voting out Rebecca versus voting out Penner. The only indication that Jenny, who as far as we know is in tight with Adam, Parvati, and Nate, might possibly be on the chopping block, is a confessional from Adam stating that Jenny might want to take Candace out after this vote, so he's got his eye on her. That's all. I guess there's one moment at the challenge where Adam looks slightly annoyed by her, but come on, Survivor. I'm really having to read between the lines on this one.
Come on, both hands, guys, stick it!
At Tribal Council, Rebecca is voted out as the weakest and least productive member of camp. Then Probst instructs Rero to crack open that bottle and read the magical twist inside, which instructs them to vote off another member of their tribe right now, without speaking.
That is not an advantage.
In a 4-2 vote, it turns out to be Jenny. Obviously, I can infer that Jenny was voted out because she wasn't as tight with Adam and Parvati as she thought she was, and Penner basically doing all the camp work single-handedly really saved his bacon. And I understand they probably didn't have the confessionals necessary to craft a real storyline for Jenny's elimination, because up until 5 minutes before she is voted out, she's not on the chopping block. So I get the storytelling bind they were in. I don't know. Good excuse not to have random bottle twists. Jenny's boot isn't quite as unexplained as the other 4 to come, since we get that single Adam confessional explaining why Jenny's on his radar. But if you give me 2 clear boot options, then have 2 boots, and those 2 people don't go, I'm gonna be a little confused. I mean, not as confused as gunshot victim Christina when she saw Jenny's vote for her, but still, pretty confused. At number 4 is Mitchell's boot in Survivor Australia. At the start of episode 4 of Australia, the majority alliance on Ogakor is Jerry, Amber, Mitchell, and Colby, with Tina as the clear 5th wheel. That's better than Keith is doing. He's clearly next to go, and Jerry's already taking a victory lap for defeating him. Keith and Jerry really didn't get along. He took her personal attacks on him, personally. Tina's doing her best to flip the vote around to save her and Keith, and Well, more on that later. A lot of the episode focuses on whether Colby will stay true to the alliance he's in with Jerry, Amber, and Mitchell, people he doesn't really care for, or whether he'll jump ship and join Tina and Keith, whose company he clearly enjoys more, at least for now.
He's a fool. The guy's a bozo.
After they lose immunity, it's 1,000,000% Keith heading into Tribal Council. Despite Colby's hesitations and Tina's best efforts, Keith is cooked harder than the rice he makes. The only indication at all that it might be Mitchell is during Tina's voting confessional. When she votes for him and announces that this was not her original vote, the plan changed on the hike to Tribal. Colby joins Keith and Tina in voting Mitchell. Mitchell and Keith deadlock 3-3, and a stray vote against Mitchell from Keith 1 round earlier sends Mitchell out on the tiebreaker. This elimination came completely out of nowhere, but in Survivor's defense, there was no way to tell this story. What happened was that everyone left camp intending to vote for Keith. But on the unfilmed, several hours long hike to Tribal Council, Tina and Colby began having last-minute reservations about voting Keith out. So they tried to recruit Mitchell to join them, he wouldn't budge, and so the trio changed their vote to him. So Mitchell was the collateral damage of a plan cooked up entirely off-screen, and the victim of a previous vote's tiebreaker elimination that Survivor had to invent on the spot. Following this, players were no longer allowed to strategize off-camera, and the tiebreaker vote was locked in as the show's pre-Final Four tiebreaker until Drawing Rocks came along. This is one of the first major blindsides in the show's history, as well as Tina's breakout moment that completely flipped the dynamics of Ogakor upside down and set her up as the new center of the tribe. It's a shame there's no footage of Tina and Colby actually pulling this move off. As it stands, Mitchell's out-of-nowhere elimination kind of has a Hoochie died on the way back to his home planet vibe. I have to go now. My planet needs me. At number 3 is Tysons' second boot in Survivor Winners at War. This is another one where it's really hard to blame them too much, since Tribal Council was absolute chaos and there were other extenuating factors. It's day 24 on Winners at War, and the episode literally begins with the family visit. Love it or hate it, Survivor leaned into this particular family visit super hard. It takes up almost half of the episode's runtime. Amber and Rob wave goodbye to their kids at the 21-minute mark of this 44-minute episode. The first reason this is so long is because this was a thank you to the players. The season was the culmination of 20 years of Survivor. These people's families are the most important thing in the world to them, so it makes sense to really make a meal out of this segment. 4 former players were even here at this visit, and it was nice to see beloved former survivors like you, and well, not so much you. Finally, this episode aired on April 15th, 2020. Obviously, they did not know how different the world would be a year later when they filmed this season in mid-2019, but this episode aired during the first quarantine lockdown, so seeing people joyously experiencing the unconditional love of their families in person was nice to see, since many people weren't able to experience this at that time. So 21 minutes of family visit, 8 minutes of challenge. We don't get any strategy until the post-challenge segment begins at the 29-minute mark. Again, I don't blame them. I'll take a one-time supersized family visit on an all-winner season this time. But yeah, it's hard to tell a cohesive story of why someone went home in 15 minutes. I don't have time here to go into every single plan that is pitched, but the only indication that the vote might land on Tyson is a throwaway comment from Tony to Sarah that Tyson should go. Heading into Tribal, Tyson's not even on the block. The 2 5-person alliances are targeting Jeremy and Sophie respectively, with possibly Kim and Sarah as potential alternate targets. If you've seen this Tribal, you remember it. As we head to the votes, Jeremy and Sarah play Advantage Roulette, and after many will they won't they moments, Jeremy plays his safety without power and bounces right out of Tribal.
It's not a immunity necklace nullifier, is it?
Sarah steals Denise's vote, and Sophie just manifests the spirit of every live Tribal hating superfan ever and pulls her alliance away to make a decision. which ends up being Tyson. Because of the supersized family visit, we basically have to yada yada a lot, like Michelle playing double agent and flipping to the Sophie and Sarah side for this vote, as well as the pretty crucial discussions at Tribal about how they decided on Tyson, a name that kind of feels pulled out of a hat, which perhaps it was. Still, I can't be too tough on them here. This is the rare time I'll actually take more family visit at the expense of everything else. It was really good. There's only one thing that could have made it better.
Cat's cousin.
Perfect. At number 2 is Aaron's elimination in Survivor Thailand. For a long time, this was the gold standard of unexplained Survivor votes. Why did Sukjai vote out Aaron at Final 9? Why was it unanimous? Who is Aaron? At the Final 9 of Survivor Thailand, Sukjai and Chuigon are still a thing. One round prior, Probst pulled the old fake merge trick, putting the two tribes on the same beach but never officially saying they're merged. Sukjai loses at Final 10 and votes off Xian, and to everyone's surprise, the tribes still remain separated at Final 9. The next immunity challenge is a do or die for Sukjai. With the core 4 members of the tribe left, they need to win this to enter the Final 8 merge 4-4 against Chuigon, or else they'll just be picked off one by one. Unfortunately, they end up putting all their tribal immunity hopes in an old man continuing to draw breath, a thing old men are not historically known for being good at. If you're wondering when we're going to get to Aaron, me too. We finally hear from Aaron 23 minutes into her boot episode. We've been on pins and needles waiting to hear from her. What will she say? What heady questions might she ponder? You know, Rene Descartes asked, "Do I exist?" Immanuel Kant asked, "What is man?" Aaron Collins asked,
Is there any reason why the lid was off our noodles?
Sukjai spends the rest of the episode crying about their loss and talking about how they're not going to talk about the vote, and we're kind of left with the ambient sense that it's going to be Penny. Much of the beginning of the episode is dedicated to showing how she's really trying to court Chuigon, just like Xian did. We also get a nice detour where Jan buries a chicken's head and feet, because, hey, wouldn't be an episode of Survivor Thailand if Jan wasn't burying the body parts of some creature or another. Anyway, Tribal Council rolls around and, oh, it's Aaron. We're never really given a reason as to why Aaron is the boot here. Perhaps they really liked the mystery angle, or perhaps they recognized it doesn't matter, since Sukjai is getting pagonged after this. Wow, I really can't believe they made me actually sympathize with Sukjai. I guess anyone looks good in comparison next to Patrick Bateman, Colonel Sanders, a literal meat collector, and a man who is 150 to 200% satisfied with his wife. I guess Helen's okay. At number 1 is Michaelas Boot in Survivor Game Changers. This is it, the most confusing and most nonsensical boot ever, on the most confusing and nonsensical season ever. This is the second half of a 2-boot episode, which saw Andrea go out in the first 20 minutes, putting us at Final 7. Following the immunity challenge, Aubrey and Ty decide that Sarah's the biggest jury threat and has to go. Taking out a major player would really pump up their fairly weak resumes. But in a sign of confusion to come, the literal very next scene is Aubrey and Cirie agreeing to target Ty. Even though Aubrey and Ty were working together the scene before, then Sarah and Cirie talk about voting Aubrey. Sarah offers her steal a vote advantage to Cirie to hold on to as insurance. Cirie and Michaela discuss using Sarah's advantage to steal her own vote and vote off Ty. But she's worried that Ty might have an idol, so she tells him about the advantage so he feels comfortable. But Ty's not sure if he can trust her. Okay. So Cirie is going to steal Sarah's vote with her own advantage, and she, Michaela, and Aubrey are going to vote out Ty. Do I have that right? Except when Cirie tries to pull this off at Tribal, Sarah says the advantage is non-transferable, which is true. It says so at the bottom of the advantage. Always read the fine print, folks. I mean, just by watching this video, you've actually already agreed to sign over all your savings to me. You should have read the terms and conditions of watching this channel, which are available upon request. Now you're probably wondering when and how Michaela goes here, since she's not one of the 2 targets, nor is she the one who just revealed her intention to bamboozle Sarah. After lots of whispering, Sarah steals Ty's vote, and we get ready to vote. Well, except Ty. If I were ranking the players by how safe I think they are, Michaela would be right under Brad, who has immunity. I said players, as in people actively playing the game, so I'm not counting Troyzan. Just like when Palpatine returned, somehow, Michaela is voted out. Michaela was not a target at any point during this entire episode, and the decision to vote her out happens entirely in unsubtitled whispers at Tribal Council, making this vote come completely out of left field. What happened, best as I can gather, is that Sarah probably wanted to punish Suri and voted out Michaela because she was a solid vote in Suri's camp, while also being a major challenge threat. I guess. Got nothing else for ya. Don't be like these Survivor players and just disappear without explanation. Like and subscribe and I'll get you more Survivor content just like this. Until next time, don't get idled out.